Ladies and gentlemen, friends, listeners and colleagues, here we are again, another weekend show with Mr. Dickson. And he's not in an art gallery, before any of you are a little bit surprised, but what a wonderful, wonderful piece there behind you, Stephen.
Thank you, Chris. It's a piece that we've had actually for quite some time that we picked up in Bali. We tend to find lots of great pieces of art or little mementos in Bali, and it's a great place for anybody when Bali finally opens again, or ever opens again, to pick up some good art at a very reasonable price, because price, Chris, is important.
Price is important, my friend. After speed, transparency, and quality.
Depends what you're buying.
Yeah.
Depends what you're in the market for.
Yeah. Well, like with our service.
I was in the market for a piece of art. So given that my wife was choosing and I was paying, price was important.
Yeah. True enough. Anyhow, the fact that you're there in front of your own art means that you've successfully completed your quarantine. So
I have.
How did you find it? You managed not to go stir crazy?
I find it absolutely fine. I mean, as a few people asked me, I mean, I am, I'm sort of a slightly larger than life character. I'm happy to admit, an extrovert to all possible definitions of the word. And people like me might struggle without sort of the lack of human contact or engagement. But it is what you make it, Chris. And therefore, as long as you have constant stimulation for the period that you're there, and I had a couple of things that kept me going. One was exercise. I was walking about 9 miles a day in a 30 square meter hotel room, which I thought was reasonably admirable. Although I must confess that takes massive amounts of will and commitment and conviction. Very easy to fall off the wagon and lie on the sofa or your chaise longue in your dressing gown and not move for a day or two. But that was good. The second thing was actually it was great to catch up on admin because I had an enforced period of medical leave a few weeks ago that most people probably didn't know, and there was no need to share. You still saw me on a podcast now and then, but I wasn't really doing much work, as you know, Chris, and therefore it was helpful that I could catch up on the admin. But you are very similar to me in the sense that admin is kind of a bit of a chore. However, when you've got 2 weeks quarantine in an hotel, it's very difficult to justify to oneself or one's accountant or HMRC why you've put off said admin. And the third thing was I was enjoying working with you on all things around compliance and training and cargo operations and future size and shape. It was all very exciting. So we had a couple of weeks of that. So I think, look, it is what you make it. I know it doesn't suit everybody. You have to go in there with very low expectations. Yeah. And what was frustrating to me was we had to join this sort of internal Telegram group within all those under quarantine to join the group, so the hotel and the medical staff could keep a check on you. And I mean, quite a decent idea, but it ended up people just being whingers, really, complaining about this, complaining about that, complaining about food, complaining about everything, complaining that nobody came to pick up the rubbish or this and I lost my shit with them and told them all that they're all an entitled bunch of twats and they should remember how difficult some others have got it whilst they're sitting in a 5-star Hilton hotel being served 3 meals a day, and the least they could do is wash their own bloody cutlery if the staff forget to bring it. Big bloody deal. Really got on my goat, so it did.
I can imagine some of the responses that might have come from you. Now, with regards to things that's happened whilst you've been in there, and also some good news, but not as clear as it might be. But one of the things I just want to say, it was good news anyhow during the week about the US-UK corridor opening, but it's not as simple as that, is it?
No, I don't think so. I think it's we're not quite there yet, Chris. We're still a bit away from being there. I think the reality is, has this decision been made by the UK to kind of spruik or elicit a response from the US, rather than this be the result of constructive bilateral discussions and negotiations that we were told were going on in Cornwall at the G7.
Yeah.
So I think we've simply done this to force the hand of the US, such that they've got to kind of get their act together, pull their finger out, because it's slightly perverse in my mind that they're allowing you to arrive from Khartoum or deepest sub-Saharan Africa without any sort of form of mitigations or risk management in place. Yet those coming from highly vaccinated communities and countries in Europe, I mean the continent of Europe, not the blasted political union that we all, the majority of the UK population do not support. However, I can't help but feel, Chris, that the dichotomy is linked to the approvals of the vaccines that are in use in the USA, because there was a survey out last week in The Economist, slightly surprisingly to me, the vaccine that gives you the most travel options currently is AstraZeneca. It allows you to travel unrestricted or with less restrictions to 109 countries. Pfizer coming up the rear around 91 or 92. So actually the vaccine of choice is AstraZeneca. AstraZeneca is produced by a UK pharmaceutical firm and a joint venture with Oxford University. It is the only non-US vaccine not approved by the US FDA. Therefore, given the prevalence of AstraZeneca's use in Europe, the UK and beyond, and the fact that all these other countries have given approval to the AstraZeneca vaccine and the US have not, I think there's a degree of pharmaceutical protectionism there, and questions would be asked if you're now allowing travelers to arrive vaccinated with the AstraZeneca vaccine and it's good enough for them, why is it not yet good enough to be approved by the FDA for the American member of public?
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, Steve, for all the good talk and all the supposed collaboration and support, etc., money's the root of all evil, and it always pops its head up no matter where you are.
Well, I think Biden also is the root of evil as well. I think Mr. Biden has proven himself thus far to be a completely ineffective, dim-witted, unintelligent choice by the American people. But what did we expect?
Have you still got the Trump mug there? Have you?
I never had a Trump mug. I was not a Trump supporter.
I'm just thinking, who would you put in?
Well, look, I mean, the fact that those two bozos got through the primaries tells you everything you need to know about the United States of America.
Right. Well, thank you very much. Hey?
Well, I mean, Biden, when he's awake, Chris, has done nothing for international relations at all. Despite all of his talk, he forgets he's got cue cards now being supplied to him by his staff because he can't remember where he is or what he's talking about. It really is a joke that the leader of the free world is a 78-year-old man with dementia, supposed, I should say, alleged cognitive problems.
Right. So, if he needs a new PR man, I know who to call.
Not me.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. No,
but look, Chris. But look, I mean, bringing it back to the impact on us and our industry, all of the CEOs of the majors last week, had the same conversation, whether it was American, Delta, or United. They were all saying the same thing, which is this administration has to act. This administration has to become more responsible and more supportive of transatlantic travel. To this day, they have not. They've spoken. Actually, they're not even said very much about it either. But they keep talking about task force and all this political rhetoric, and it is nothing more than that. But we know that transatlantic travel is New York, London. I think London, New York, that city pair is the most important international market in the world. By a country mile. The revenue on that route alone just puts everything else into insignificance. So we have seen the bookings from New York to London increase by 250% week on week, just based on the UK now allowing vaccinated US travelers into the UK. So, we know how important that market is, and we know how frustrated it is for the American carriers, but not only for them. IAG and British Airways in particular will also be massively suffering, as will the likes of the Lufthansa group, as will the like of Air France, KLM.
Yeah. No, that's going to be the switch that will definitely have a big impact on the recent drop in the share price as well. So, but it's ironic, Steve, and I always find your direct approach. I love it, and it also makes me smile. So the fact that I'm smiling is also very supportive of what you're saying. So don't ever think differently. But what I don't understand is when they make an announcement, so they're saying like, from August the 2nd, fully vaccinated US citizens will be able to travel to the UK without needing to quarantine. Then you look a little bit deeper into the detail, and it's saying that, the US still has it on a level 4 health notice and implores their people do not travel, and UK citizens are not permitted entry to the US. So the next milestone has got to be, some sort of reciprocal communication.
Well, it's not. That is not the restriction, Chris. It's not that UK citizens are not permitted entry to the US at all. UK citizens are permitted entry to the US. European Union citizens are permitted entry to the US, providing they've not been in the UK or a Schengen state within the preceding 14 days. So most of my friends and colleagues are going to Cancun, booking 2 weeks in Playa del Carmen, and then heading north. And that's perfectly doable. In fact, you could go to Turkey. You could head out to, you could book a cheap flight on EasyJet out to Burgas or Varna, or to Bulgaria, or to the Black Sea in Turkey. Have a lovely little holiday for yourself, probably for less than 500 quid, I would suspect, and then fly direct on Turkish Airlines from Istanbul to the eastern seaboard.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a mockery of it.
This is a complete and utter joke. So this is politics at its best. The only person that I thought was more sort of Trumpian or nationalistic than Trump was Trump himself, because he would argue with himself about what was right or wrong. Actually, what we found out is that Biden is more Trumpian than Trump himself.
Oh, it's amazing, mate. It's amazing. But also, it's such
Who's
a shame.
advising these people, Chris?
Huh?
Who is advising these people?
Well, there you go. I mean, we've seen who was advising poor old Boris here and how bitter that man is. I mean, I think that's ridiculous as well. But
we'd have to create a podcast, a whole series on that discussion.
Oh my God!
Wouldn't that be fun?
What on earth, that man? I mean, what he thinks people think of him now, it's madness. But
I'm glad to see that it's had little effect on the opinion polls.
Yeah.
The British public really don't give a toss, do they?
Well, also, Steve, you get fed up of somebody like that and the way he talks, looks, acts, and you think, what sort of credibility or what sort of loyalty does a person like that?
What amazed me, Chris, was the fact that when he was the chief of staff for the Prime Minister, for those not paying such close attention to British politics as Chris and I, this is Dominic Cummings, the deposed former advisor who ill-advised the Prime Minister on many an occasion. It's amazing how the left really kind of couldn't stand him when he was in office. And advising and saying, you liar, you this, that, you've got zero integrity. How can you stand there and lie? You lied about this, you lied about that. The minute he's now criticizing the government, of course, the tables have turned. Everybody on the left absolutely loves Dominic Cummings, saying, yes, what a man of great integrity. What proud we are of him speaking out about this. This is really super. And that naughty Prime Minister, he must be the... Good Lord, God give me strength. You're a fickle bunch, the great British public, aren't they? Really particularly fickle.
I think one of the good things is I understand he's going to get his name changed now from Dominic Cummings to Dominic Goings, because it won't be long and then he'll be gone. And anybody that comes across the man, I mean, would you trust him to work for you or give you advice? Nah.
I would have nothing to do with him.
Not at all.
Meantime, in Scotland, there's trouble brewing, as Nicola Sturgeon has told her electorate that they lack intelligence to understand the COVID restrictions, she said at press conference. So things are not going particularly well on that front either. So Shall we move on from politics, Chris?
I think we should. I think we should, my friend. Now, here's something. Here's something I want to just run past you. The airline safety website, airline ratings. Okay, so they've just published the top 20 airlines. Yeah. I know. That's why I want to talk about it. I know how much you love these things, but the criteria is safety, in-flight service, passenger comfort, and flight routes. But they've also now they've covered how these particular airlines have responded to the COVID pandemic. Now, I'm not sure if you've seen the table or the listing, but some of the parties on here, I think you'd be interested to know, I found it very interesting. So you've got in number one position, you've got Qatar Airways. I don't think a major surprise, apart from they were number 9 last year. But I think they've done a fantastic job there. And for anybody that's travelled on them, their in-flight service, their passenger comfort is absolutely superb. And as far as route network, well, you couldn't get better. So, as far as that's concerned, incredible. Then you got Air New Zealand, who've now moved down to second, but they were first last year. Then you got Singapore Airlines, who were second last year. Qantas are at 4 and 4. Emirates are currently at 5. They were 6 last year, so they've gone up a little bit. Cathay Pacific have gone down 1. Virgin Atlantic has stayed the same. United Airlines, there was nothing from them last time. Eva Air are at 9. They were 8. British Airways now at 10, and they were 17. Lufthansa 11 and 11, so they've stayed. All Nippon Airways were 3rd. They're now 12. Finnair were 12, now 13. Japan Airlines, 13, 14. KLM, now 15, were 14. Hawaiian Airlines stay the same. Alaskan Airlines have just moved up 1 place. Virgin Australia have moved down 8 places. Delta stay the same at 19. And then Etihad at 20, and they were 20. So, it's I think that's, who, are you surprised at some of them, or are you surprised at the ones that are up the top and then where a lot of the European ones are?
I don't give much credence to this kind of reporting, Chris, to be honest with you.
I know you don't, but if you're taking the criteria and, you look at who's done what, they also gave out other awards. So they gave the best first class. This might be something you might wish to comment on. The best first class to Singapore Airlines, best business to Qatar, best premium economy to Air New Zealand, best economy to Air New Zealand.
Stop now. Don't go past business.
Yeah, I was going to say, now I'm going into areas that you wouldn't have any experience on at all. But also the best low cost airline in Europe, EasyJet, and the best low cost airline in America, Southwest. So there's no real.
On what basis? I mean, on an operational basis, on a customer basis, on a product basis. I mean, there's so many variables in there, Chris.
I know, and that's
and best is a relative term. So it can only be best or assessed if it's the best based on criteria, and who sets that criteria. Probably, my view is, I've been always kind of circumspect about these kind of ratings and these kind of schemes whereby, they're almost contrived to deliver answers based on, reaching an alternative outcome. That outcome might be consulting services, or it might be an award on the wall, or it might be a little plaque in your funny room, or it might be a little diamond badge on your website. I mean, I do think these are quite contrived, and I don't think they're particularly helpful. And for the consumer amongst us, maybe I would suggest things like TripAdvisor are a better place to look, because you get raw consumer feedback that is not that is not kind of filtered, or not it's not particularly articulate sometimes, but it is raw, and it gives you a better sort of feel potentially for these things. There are also, I think interesting verified ratings agencies now that rate based on consumer feedback rather than asking an airline to fill in a survey, which a lot of these processes have been using. So things like IOSA, things like ISAGO, things like ICERPS, etc. Those are all very interesting methods of assessing airlines compliance or ground handlers compliance or so on and so forth. But as you and I know well, Chris, just from very recent experience, sometimes the focus can be in the wrong areas.
Yeah.
And therefore, I often will know, and you will know, that an ISEGO or IOSA audit team will not, through no fault of their own, will not review to the fullest extent the evidence available to them. I'm not saying that's across the board. I'm just suggesting that on occasion there are some other priorities, that the pressing priorities that the audit team have to comply with. I know that certainly when the best thing I've always seen is, Chris, is the use of internal audit tools, internal audits that are done without fear of recrimination, in a just culture, an environment whereby it is encouraged to report positively and negatively or neutrally within the organization, as a management team with the right quality oversight controls, the right level of supervision in place to monitor trends and so on and so forth. I tend to find those are the most valuable and valid, gives me the most valuable sense of what's going on in that organization, rather than an external lens where I know that I could go on a turnaround where there's no show now being put on. The actors haven't been briefed 5 minutes before the audit team turn up to say this or to say that, or not to say this and not to say that. And I could go there with you, Chris, and you could go into a terminal, and I could go into the ramp, and you and I would come away with a list of, I bet you that the airline at the top of that list, Qatar Airways, you and I could go into any shed where Qatar operates and find a list of that. Not because Qatar are not, a valid recipient of that award, just simply because that's not the nature of the beast. These organizations are looking for no audit findings to be able to put a rubber stamp on it and say, you're the best. Well, I know that in the shed in Khartoum or in Abuja or in Dulles, I will find issues, Chris, as you will, and some sustained issues. So it's not about necessarily just being the best. It's actually why do you want to be the best and who you're trying to sell yourself to. So from a consumer perspective, all very well, but from a industry perspective, I think a healthy degree of skepticism is okay.
No, you're right, Steve. You're right, and even more right about the fact that if you do have a just culture and you've got a CEO who definitely wants to have findings because it's a sign of constant improvement and moving forward, that's the best culture you can have in any organization. And far too many people now, and you mentioned some of the, ISEGO, IOSA, etc., with the ISARPs, people are spending far too much time relating to those ISARPs and the administration around them, rather than verifying that the actions behind them are being carried out and being done to the best of the possible.
Absolutely.
And I just think, it's like anything. If you want to improve, you've got to have people to tell you, well, this is an area, not be said that, everything's fantastic. That's why some of these athletes are so good, because the ones who are really committed, they're always doing extra training, extra sessions, extra skills, etc., to make themselves better. But
absolutely.
But in the main, I think most people are now looking for this summer to set some form of common sense and logic, because I think it's going to be a tough winter again. But everything has got to be fully prepared and logic with regards to next year, 2022, because it can't continue like this. It's ridiculous. And I think the credibility of the vaccinations will go if they continue to have restrictions for people who've been vaccinated. It doesn't make sense.
Totally agree. Totally.
Yeah.
Interesting debate just on vaccines, Chris. Interesting debate going on in Australia now. You know that Alan Joyce, the Qantas CEO, had said last year that he wanted all of his passengers to be vaccinated on international flights.
Yep.
They seem to be now sort of soliciting public opinion on this very issue, which is, whilst we've asked for that for international flights, should it equally apply to domestic flights?
Yeah.
And more critically, should we mandate that our staff are vaccinated to be able to still continue to work for Qantas, given that some other sectors in front line, I think critical sectors, probably relating to health and social care, etc., have been mandated by their employers, as I think the UK government has done with its social care workers. So interesting question. Maybe I throw that one to you, because that's something that I know that you feel quite strongly about.
I mean, my answer straight away is yes, mate. Yes. Why would you not? Why would you not put something in place that you know is going to make an impact and protect people working and everybody else, and especially with this bloody pandemic that's going on? Why would you not do it and speed things up? And why would people not accept it and go with it and say, right, you know, if we want to do what we thought was normal and what we'd like to have as some sort of new way moving forward, then let's do it. Why not, Steve?
I actually I don't disagree with you, Chris. I think my point is around yes. I think for international travel, for travellers, very easy to mandate. For crew members and those that are operating those flights or those that are ground handling those flights, does an employer have the right to mandate to its workforce that they must be vaccinated? So either it's jab or job. Is that the choice available to them now?
Stephen, I think there are certain things in place, and you know as well as I do, in hospitals and doctors, there are certain inoculations that they have to have because it's been proven that if they don't have it, it could affect themselves and also other I was going to say customers, but other patients. Now, if that's in place, you yourself, I can remember if I had to go to certain countries, I had to have yellow fever and I had to have my
sure.
So why not, Stephen? And if you,
I will do everything I can, Chris, to advocate vaccine take-up. In fact, I have been with family groups or people here and Asians and Australians who are particularly loath to take this up because their government scared them both on the virus, or firstly on the vaccine and now on the virus, and they got a bit of a double whammy, and they've created a vaccine hierarchy. But when you had such low COVID load in the community, people have said, why should I take a vaccine? Now, that is their choice. But I will try and do everything I possibly can as a person and as a professional to encourage the uptake. But if you do not choose, if you are not in that healthcare setting and you're an airline worker, a pilot or a cabin crew member or an engineer, and they say to you, it's jab or job, would you support that?
At this moment in time, Steve, and to get everything going and to have some sort of consistency, I would say provided there was enough information and there was enough support and there was enough credible data, I would say yes, and I would give a certain period of time. Now, the reason I would say yes is only just this last week, somebody very, very close to me, who I love dearly, and he's a great character. I spoke to him on the phone. I could not believe what had happened to him. He's one of the fittest men I've ever come across. He does triathlons. He eats fantastically. He exercises fantastically. He sleeps fantastically. He picked up COVID, okay, and it knocked him sideways. And he was 10 days on oxygen. Now, the man he's an ex-rugby player. He was known as a 007 in the particular country he comes from, a model. You could not wish for a more action man than this fella. And he said he cried when the doctors told him that the hormones and the drugs he was taking were going to allow him to come off oxygen. He said, you do not know what it's like to be dependent on oxygen, and then when you come off of it. And he said he would now, and he was one that said, I'm fit as a butcher's dog, there's no problem, etc. He would now advocate, he'd be the best salesman in the world for the vaccines. And I think, a lot of these youngsters as well are now picking up long COVID and stuff. They don't realize it. And all these people who are, giving misguidance and stuff, they should be strung up even. I find it terrible. And, everybody now should start looking after themselves to look after other people. And if you're in a job that brings you in contact with so many people, if it makes sense and we can get the world back to something that we would all love to see, why not, Steve? Why not?
So you would dismiss them if they chose not to take the jab?
After taking the responsibility to give them credible argumentation, credible support, credible facts, okay, filtering out all these untruths and stupid issues, I would then say from such and such a date, to protect the company, to protect yourselves, to protect the sustainability, etc. This is now part and parcel of working for this organisation or this sector. I would do it.
Wow. Okay. Got it.
So Thank you for that. I don't know what you're going to do with that information, or whether that's going to come.
No, I'm curious. Look, it sparked an interesting debate, Chris, because this.
Bite me in the arse in a few years, but no, Steve.
No. Look, I'm pro-vaccine. I want everyone to get vaccinated. My point is, at what point does one take one's liberties away from them? And this is a slippery slope to mandate vaccines in a non-healthcare setting. I get the point on healthcare settings. That's easy to argue. I think it's more difficult to argue, and there's more debate to be had in private employment settings. That's my point.
And that's why I said, with support, with facts, with data, and also with a little bit of a time lag to allow people to appreciate some of the information, so they're not pressured into making that decision. But at the end of the day, Steve, there are a lot bigger things that people talk about and moan about. I mean, even this Alexa, I can't stand the damn thing. I have more arguments with that than I do with my wife. And all these areas where, CCTV cameras, I mean, there's things going on now that people don't even appreciate or understand. And it's all part of moving forward. But like you've said so many times, if I'm not doing anything wrong and I'm not in a place that I shouldn't be, and what's the problem?
And I don't say that as a xenophile, Chris, which I am, which is a heavily surveilled society, as you well know. I say that as a resident of the city of London, which is the most surveilled city in the world by a country mile. Yeah. But I have nothing to hide, and therefore I don't object. I hope that actually the presence of all of these cameras and machines or other devices that we do not know about will only enhance me and my family's safety.
Yeah, no, I agree, Steve. And who knows, in the future there'll be, we've got cars now that are able to pick up where there's a radar or a speeding camera or whatever. But
we like those.
Yeah, they're fantastic. But at the end of the day, that just means somebody slows down, and then as soon as they go past it, they put the throttle through the roof.
Well, don't you hate the average speed cameras?
Yeah. But who knows, in the future, Steve, there'll be a link, and people will have the option to link that to their car, so it controls the car. So instead of cruise control, you'll have legal limit control, or you'll have average legal limit control, or something. So these things are coming. So,
well, look, it's existed in our industry for a long time, Chris. It's called flight data monitoring, and it measures all of the parameters in which we operate, or the flight crew operate the aircraft, speeds, configurations, excursions, etc. It's all there today. So I'm sure that little black box could be taking out the grounded A320 and installed in a Ford Cortina, and possibly
Granada. I was a Ford
Granada.
No, I was a Granada. Yeah.
I missed those. I loved my Peugeot 306D Turbo.
Oh my God!
That was my second ever car. Fabulous machine that was.
Yeah.
Anyway,
right. Listen. Lovely to have you again.
We're out of time. I feel like we didn't cover much ground today.
No, we didn't. But it's just nice. It's just nice to talk to you. And if anybody else,
there are hopefully some people listening as well, Chris.
There is. Ironically, I met a couple during the week actually, and one of them said to say hello, and that he likes listening. So it's encouraging. Even if there's only one person out there listening to the two of us, Steve, it's worthwhile.
Thanks a lot, Chris.
Take care, mate. All the best.
There you go. Have a good weekend.
You too. Cheers.